I don't want my home to look perfect but lack peace. It's about cultivating an atmosphere where the peace of God dwells inside of our homes. I believe that in doing the small things and creating the rhythms every day and creating the systems in our home, we can eliminate a lot of that overwhelm, and we can actually come to a place where stewarding our home is an act of joy. It can be an act of worship unto the Lord. There have been so many times that I have caught myself telling someone, I have to do this, I have to do the dishes, and then I have to clean up, I have to make dinner for my family, and then I have to do bath time, and I have to do bedtime, and then I have to hop on the computer, and I have to work, and I have to do all of these things. A very simple shift that really changed things for me is changing that posture from I have to I get to. I get to fold tiny little clothes for this child that I prayed to the Lord for and that He blessed me with. I get to cook nourishing, healthy meals for my family that are going to gather people around the table. I get to be the one to pour into my children. I get to be the one that can help provide financially for my family. Whatever it looks like, I think shifting that heart posture from I have to I get to will really set a strong foundation for how you go about implementing systems inside of your home. Welcome back to another episode of A Time to Speak, a show where we are exploring the intersections of personal development, growth, wellness, culture, and more, all from a faith-based perspective. I am your host, Jonna Nichelle, and today we are diving into a topic that is very near and dear to my heart, and I like to call cultivating a sanctuary mindset, or bringing the atmosphere of heaven into your home. This is something that is huge for me. I am very big on rhythms in my home and systems in my home. And so we are going to be diving into all things order in the home and how to cultivate an atmosphere that reflects the atmosphere of God inside of our homes. Now, we are talking about this on a few different levels. We'll be talking about this on a spiritual level as well as on the practical level, things that I do every single day, week, month, how I cultivate systems and rhythms in my home as a busy mom, wife, business owner, all of the things, and how we can establish routines inside of our home that work for us. I know for me, I have realized that I show up as the very best version of myself for my husband, my children, my work, myself, my rest, when there are rhythms and systems and order inside of my home. For me, it is very hard to operate when I feel like my home is in a chaotic state, or when I feel like I'm in this constant place of reactivity to everything that is going on, and I don't really have a grip on what's happening inside of my home. I genuinely believe that the home is the foundation of everything that we do in life. And I know I have seen it in my own life where when my home is in order and when things are flowing smoothly in my home, everything else in my life is just easier to handle and it flows so much more smoothly, which is why I love talking about this topic. Now, before we dive into today's episode, I want to give a little bit of biblical foundation for what I mean by creating a home that reflects Christ. And there are two verses that I really love that I think speak to this really well. The first one being Proverbs 31:27. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. I know I have been convicted by that verse so many times. She does not eat the bread of idleness. She is not idle. A wise woman watches over the affairs of her household. So we are talking biblical values, not just creating this perfectly decorated or organized or clean or aesthetic space, but actually biblically stewarding our home as women. And the other verse that I really love is 1 Corinthians 14:33. For God is not a God of disorder, but of peace. And so again, this conversation is not about perfection. It's about cultivating an atmosphere where the peace of God dwells inside of our homes. I don't know about you, but I want the peace of God dwelling inside of my home. I want people to walk into my home, whether that's my own family, my husband, my son, whether that's my friends, whoever it is, to walk into my home and feel the peace of God reigning over my home. That is so important to me and a big part heart of why we're having this discussion today. I also believe that stewarding our home is a responsibility, yes, but it's also something that can bring so much joy and so much life into our home and into our relationships. And I speak to the joy that can be found in this because I feel like our culture often glorifies the struggle of womanhood or wifehood or motherhood, and just making it seem like everything that we have to steward and the responsibilities that we have are this burden to carry instead of a joy to steward. And I really believe in pushing back on that narrative and shifting our mindset around that. I do not believe that the things that God has given us to steward should be glorified as these massive burdens and weights that we have to carry. But I believe that the things that God has given us to steward are blessings and really should be treated as such. Now, I'm not saying that there's not going to be hard days. There aren't days that feel overwhelming and like there's just so many things to do. Trust me, if you have ever felt like that, I am with you. I can completely relate. However, I believe that in doing the small things and creating the rhythms every day and creating the systems in our home, we can eliminate a lot of that overwhelm and we can actually come to a place where stewarding our home is an act of joy. It can be an act of worship unto the Lord. I also believe that there are so many mental health benefits of having an organized home. We know that reduced stress and anxiety are often the fruit of having an organized home. One study that was done on this found that women who described their homes as cluttered experienced higher cortisol levels throughout the day, which indicates elevated stress levels. So having organization in your home can actually lead to your cortisol levels being decreased, thus experiencing less stress. And I don't know about you, but less stress sounds lovely to me. We also know that an organized environment minimizes distractions, improving focus and cognitive function. So decluttering can literally lead to better focus and increased productivity. And this is part of the reason why I say that when my home is in order, it feels like everything else in my life flows so much more smoothly, because I just cannot get out of my own head when my home feels very disorganized and very cluttered. Even when I sit down, and I know for me, this may impact me even more because I work out of my home. So when I'm existing within my home and trying to work and I look around and it feels like there's clutter and disorganization everywhere, I find it hard to be productive at work. This may not affect you as much if you're outside of the home for the majority of your day, but I'm sure that even coming back from work to a home that feels super cluttered and disorganized isn't good for our mental health either. And then finally, we know that having organization in your home leads to improved mood and sense of control. So regular cleaning and organizing can boost your mood and create a sense of accomplishment. So what does that look like and how do we do that? That is what we are going to be chatting about today. And I'm going to do this by sharing some of my own personal experiences, how I create spiritual rhythms in my home, practical rhythms in my home, daily, weekly, monthly structures that work for me. And of course, this is going to look different for every single person. This has looked different many times for me over the course of my life, but these are foundational principles that I truly believe can be applied no matter what season of life you're in. Whether you are living with your parents and you have your own room in their home, whether you are in a college dorm living with roommates, whether you are in a one-bedroom apartment by yourself, whether you have kids and a family and you are living in a home together, I believe that these are some foundational principles that we can all use to really cultivate an atmosphere of peace, to cultivate the rhythm of heaven inside of our home, and to have systems and order that works for each and every one of us. And we are going to start that off by talking about the spiritual rhythms that we can set inside of our home, because I truly believe when the atmosphere is set within your home, when your heart posture is in the right place, when your mindset is in the right place, then creating order within our home just flows naturally from there. And so what I mean by that is just adjusting even the posture that you have when it comes to caring for your home. And I'll give you an example of this from my own life. There have been so many times that I have caught myself telling someone, oh, well, I have to do this. I have to do the dishes, and then I have to clean up. I have to make dinner for my family, and then I have to do bath time, and I have to do bedtime, and then I have to hop on the computer, and I have to work, and I have to do all of these things. I have to. And I feel like a very simple shift that really changed things for me is changing that posture from I have to I get to, and infusing that even into the most mundane tasks of my household. So for example, I get to fold tiny little clothes for this child that I prayed to the Lord for and that he blessed me with. I get to cook nourishing, healthy meals for my family that are going to gather people around the table and cultivate an atmosphere of joy. I get to sweep the floors that have been walked on and run on by little feet and by friends and family and the people that I love, instead of resenting the mess that gets left behind. I think for me, just having this posture of I get to do these things, I get to steward what God has given me, has made the biggest difference in how I go about these tasks that can often feel very monotonous. They feel like they're never ending and they're on this loop and you have to do them all of the time. But when you think about those things as I get to do this, God has actually given me and trusted me with these things to steward, and I get to be the one to steward them well. I get to be the one to pour into my children. I get to be the one that can help provide financially for my family. Whatever it looks like, I think shifting that heart posture from I have to I get to will really set a strong foundation for how you go about implementing systems inside of your home. I also believe specifically that we as women have so much authority over the atmosphere inside of our home. We set the tone of the home. And you can have the most organized home in the world. You can have all of the systems. You can have all of the structure. But if your home is filled with anxiety, with stress, tension, negativity, your home is not going to feel peaceful. I don't know if you've ever walked into a room and somebody in the room is just exuding stress and exuding anxiety. And the space can be the cleanest space in the world, but as soon as you walk into the room, you can feel the atmosphere shift and you're like, oh, something's off here. And you can literally feel it coming off of that person. That is not what we are aiming for. If you are doing all of these things to create order in your home and to create systems in your home, but then you carry the atmosphere of stress and anxiety and overwhelm, and it bleeds onto everyone else around you, that is not the idea of cultivating a sanctuary mindset in your home. I don't want my home to look perfect but lack peace. Proverbs 14:1 says, "The wise woman builds her house, but with her own hands the foolish one tears hers down." So this directly speaks to the amount of influence that we as women have over the home. And I believe it starts with the atmosphere that we cultivate on the inside of it. Here are a couple of ways that you can cultivate an atmosphere of peace inside your home. Number one, guard your words. Be mindful of what comes out of your mouth. Are you constantly speaking out of this place of overwhelm and stress? If so, think about how you can shift that to speaking life over your home and speaking life over your family. Another way, and probably the most important way that you can set the foundation in your home of an atmosphere of peace, is praying over your home. Walk through every room, pray over your home. One thing that I have realized, especially now as a mother, is that I cannot start my day if I have not covered myself and covered my home. And it doesn't have to be these super long prayers to start out your day. This could be as simple as getting up and saying, God, guard my mind today, guard my lips today. Let me speak life. Let me focus on what is true, what is holy, what is worthy of my attention, what is worthy of your attention. Please help me to be the best steward of my home today. Help me to be the best wife I can be today. Help me to be the best employee or business owner or whatever that I can be today. Help me to be the best mother that I can be today. Let my lips reflect your heart and your heart for the people around me. So setting the tone in your home by praying over your home. You can even do this by going room to room and praying over specifically the things that are going to happen in that room. Maybe you walk into your living room in the morning, and as you're opening the blinds for the day, you pray over over anybody who's going to come and dwell and be in that space, that they would experience the atmosphere of God. This is something that I especially love to do when I am hosting. So anytime that I am ever hosting, whether we're just having a couple friends over for dinner or whether we're hosting a party, whatever it is, one thing that is a non-negotiable for me before people start arriving to my home is I am going to pray over my home. I'm going to pray that when they enter into my home, they tangibly can feel the presence of God. They feel the love of God. They feel safe. They feel secure. They feel comfortable. So pray over your home. Another thing you can do is be mindful of what is playing in your home. So do you constantly have the TV on? If so, what is coming out of that TV and how is that shifting the atmosphere in your home? Are you constantly playing music in your home? If so, what does that music do for the atmosphere that's being cultivated? I am someone who loves having music on in my house. There's almost always something playing in my house. Usually it's instrumental music. I love lo-fi, kind of that like soft house music. I also love listening to worship music in the house or just acoustic music in the house. I believe that what you play and have on the inside of your home has a lot to do with how your home feels and the overall atmosphere. And finally, and this one is so hard for me sometimes because I can be very task oriented, is just slowing down and being present on the inside of your home. Embracing the fact that this home is your safe space. This home is the place where you get to dwell and you get to be with your family and you get to make memories. I know that can be really hard to do when it feels like the task lists are never ending, which is why we will get into the practical piece of how to create rhythms and systems in our home. But I believe when we can slow down and be more present inside of our home, it truly cultivates an atmosphere that reflects that. Now let's talk about what that looks like practically. And I tend to break this down in my own life into daily systems, weekly systems, monthly systems. And again, what this looks like for you is going to be different than what this looks like for me. But I hope that in sharing what this looks like in my own life, it can give you some tools or some takeaways that you can then go forth and implement in the way that works best for you. Now, if I had to narrow this down to one foundational principle, it is this: I run my home like a business. Now, I don't know if this is because I am a business owner, but even if you're not a business owner, you know that a business cannot run efficiently if it does not have workflows, systems, rhythms in place that keep everything running smoothly. I believe that this is the same thing for our homes and that we should treat it as such. Now, I don't mean that everything has to feel like this massive job or chore, but what I do mean is that if you have the expectation that you are going to cultivate an atmosphere of peace, you are going to cultivate the atmosphere of heaven inside your home, it is going to come about with intention in how you structure your day-to-day life down to the small details. So I want to talk a little bit about what that looks like for me personally. And we'll start with our daily routines. The reason that I love to break this down from monthly to weekly to daily is because I feel like the more systems I have in place, the less decision fatigue that I have. And if you are listening to this and you have ever been bogged down by decision fatigue, you know how draining that can be. And I know as women, as wives, mothers, we tend to be the worst victims of decision fatigue. I feel like at any given point in my day, I can have literally 30 things on my mind, from what's for dinner to I need to switch the laundry, I need to make a doctor's appointment, I need to get back to that client, oh, I forgot to text my friend back, whatever the case may be. Sometimes just the overwhelm of having to make so many decisions. I need to pick out the meat that's going to thaw for dinner. Oh, I'm not sure if we have that for this recipe, whatever. The list goes on and on, but decision fatigue is so real. And so this is why I like to get really granular. So starting out with my daily routine, and I've made some notes so I can kind of go over what the things are that make up my day. I kind of break my day up into three shifts, if you will. I've got my opening shift, my afternoon shift, and my evening shift. Again, really trying to approach the home like a business so that I don't have the overwhelm and I don't have the decision fatigue. As soon as I get up for the day, first thing I'm doing is making my bed. If you are not making your bed in the morning, let's just stop there. Let's just stop right there, because I'm telling you, I probably sound like somebody's mother right now, and I really don't care. Making your bed sets the tone for your day. When you have your bed made, you're already setting yourself up to win. You're already telling yourself, I'm going to clean this area up and I'm going to do something that my future self is going to thank me for tonight when I get to peel back my sheets and crawl into my bed. Make your bed, win the day. And I also want to say this for anyone who is listening that does have kids, these things can be implemented with your children too. My son is literally 2 years old. And one thing that I say to him every single day is, let's make our bed before we leave the room. And his bed isn't even a bed. It's like a little crib that we're converting into a toddler bed. And making his bed literally consists of taking his blanket and hanging it over the side of the crib. But every single morning I say, let's make our bed. Do you know why we make our bed? He says, why? And I say, because we take care of the things that God has given us. I think making your bed is such a pivotal part of the day. I could go on, as you could probably tell, but let's just start there. After I make my bed and I've brushed my teeth and all of those things, I am chugging a large glass of water. Now, I am also in my 3rd trimester of pregnancy, so I am pretty much chugging water at all times. But especially first thing in the morning, it just feels so good to have a nice glass of water before I'm reaching for the coffee, before I'm reaching for anything else. I make my bed, I have a large glass of water, and then I go out into my living room. And this is one that also makes a very big difference for me. I immediately open up all of the blinds in my house. I do this inside of my room and I do this inside of the living room. I am a person who does not like the big, bright, white overhead lights first thing in the morning. I love for the natural light to come in. So what I'll do is early in the morning, I'll open all of my blinds and then I'll turn on the lamps. I'll let some warm light come in, and it just really does something to set the tone of the day. At that point, I will usually start an essential oil diffuser, and then I will get started on my morning chores, which really just includes unloading the dishwasher, getting started on breakfast, and getting ready to get my son up and start the day with him. So we're getting up, we're making our bed, we're drinking our water, we're letting some natural light in, we're immediately unloading the dishwasher. I'm not even thinking about it. I don't want to have to revisit the dishwasher later in the day when I'm ready to load it, and I'm like, oh, I have to unload it first. So we're immediately unloading the dishwasher. This is honestly mindless for me because I do it so naturally every single day. And then I'm going to get started on breakfast and get ready to get my son up. Now, you can infuse personal practices into this as well. If you do a spiritual practice, maybe you start out the morning by writing in your journal or praying or doing a 5-minute meditation on God's word, whatever that looks like, you can also infuse that into your day. But this is kind of what my opening shift looks like. It looks like this every day. It rarely changes. Of course, there are unforeseen circumstances that might switch things up from time to time, but for the most part, this is what I'm doing every single day. This is also the time where I typically think through what I'm going to have for lunch and what I'm going to have for dinner that day. Now, let me be clear when I say this. This is not where I am just trying to completely figure out what there is in the house and what I have. I have already, and we'll talk about this later, but at this point, I've already planned our meals for the week. I have down notes of everything that we're able to make with what's already in the house. So at this point, I'm just picking out the things that we're going to have this specific day, and I may take something out of the freezer, or I may tell my husband, hey, for lunch today, this is what we're going to have if he's home. When he's home, he works remote. So we usually will tag team who makes lunch. So I may say, hey, this is what we have for lunch and here's what we're going to have for dinner tonight. Or if it's just me, which it is a lot of the time through the weekdays, I'm just planning, okay, here's what we're going to have for lunch. Here's what we're going to have for dinner. And boom, it's completely off of my mind. And then from there, of course, I get the day started. I get ready for the day, I get my son ready for the day, all of the things. But that's kind of the opening shift that I always do. And I really feel like it sets a strong tone for the day. Now, going into the afternoon shift, this is a very quick kind of home reset that I love to have because I have found that if I am kind of opening my home up for the day and then I don't really do much to keep up with my home throughout the day, that by the time it is evening time and I'm done with dinner and I'm done with bedtime and bath time and all of the things, I am so tired. And the last thing I want to do is look around my home and it is just this monstrous pile of things that I have to clean and tidy and organize. So I have found that implementing a short afternoon routine really changes the game. And what this typically looks like for me is very simple. It is going through my house and quickly tidying up any rooms that need tidying and doing the dishes so I don't have a pile of dishes going into dinner time. Now, like I said before, I work from home, so I am in my home a lot where it's very easy for me to do this afternoon tidy. And my son is usually in the home with me, which really is what calls for the afternoon tidy in the first place. And so if you are out of your home or your kids are in school all day, you may not need to worry about something like this. But for me, having that afternoon reset is so helpful. And it's also something that I try to implement with my son. So maybe we're in the playroom and I know we're about to leave the playroom and we're not going to go back in it until after he's up from his nap. That may be a time where I say, okay, before we move on to the next thing, before we go eat lunch, let's clean up. And we do that together. We clean up the playroom, we tidy it up really quickly, and boom, it's done. It's ready for him to be reset once he wakes up from his nap and wants to play again. And it doesn't leave me with a mess that just keeps building and building upon each other. And then finally, I have what I think of as my closing shift in the home. Now, this is making dinner, cleaning up dinner, doing bath time, doing bedtime, going through my house one more time and doing a quick tidy. I'm mopping the floors. I'm doing a wipe down of all of the counters. I'm cleaning out the coffee maker and resetting it for the next day, that kind of thing. So that is what I consider the closing shift. I'm closing the blinds, I'm turning back on that warm light, and I'm really trying to set the mood for a relaxing evening. Now, again, this is so much easier to do when you're doing those little things throughout the day, or even when you set the tone in the morning and you do a quick tidy of your home. So the closing down of the home may take 25 to 30 minutes, but it's something that I'm always going to do. And I'm not going to start the next day without doing these things because I don't want the spillover of yesterday coming into the next day. So when you're doing your closing routine, you're really setting yourself up for the next morning ahead. I know for me, it feels so nice to wake up and walk out into my home in the morning and everything is in place. The blankets are draped nicely over the couch. The dishes are clean. The counters are sparkling. It just feels so good. It feels so peaceful. It doesn't feel like I'm waking up again to that chaos and disorder. And so you really set yourself up for the day you want to have by the night that you have the night before. A couple of other things that I want to touch on here. If you are hearing this and you're like, I really want to create these little rhythms and these systems inside of my home that will make it run more smoothly, but I already feel like my home is in such disarray, I highly recommend that before trying to implement these daily habits and daily routines, that you start out with doing a really deep clean and a deep reset, even a deep decluttering of your home. That is something that I also want to touch on, especially with kids. I have found that for so many other women who are moms, the reason that they have so much trouble staying on top of things with their kids is because they have so much stuff. And let me tell you, these kids do not need as much stuff as you think they need. I promise you. They actually, from a psychological standpoint, probably would function better with a little bit less stuff in their space. So your kid does not need 101 toys inside of their playroom. I don't know if you've ever heard of the idea of doing toy rotations where you rotate out 8 to 10 toys at a time. So it sparks their interest and it sparks more imaginative play. But that is another thing, is that when you have just so many items in your home, this doesn't even have to be specifically related to kids, but when you just have so much stuff in your home, it is very hard to keep up with all of that stuff. So if you are starting this from baseline and you're like, I am just not happy with the way that my home has been running, I highly recommend taking inventory of your home and doing a massive decluttering and organizing. This may not be something that you can tackle in one day. This may take you a couple of weeks. And so the way that I like to go about this, and I also go about this on a quarterly basis, is I write down all of the areas of my home. That may be the primary bedroom closet, all of the cabinetry inside of the kitchen, or your child's room, or the garage space, or your storage closet, whatever it looks like. Write down all of the rooms in your house, and then you can set aside time. I know a lot of us are really busy, and so the idea of setting aside like 10 hours in one day to go through all of this just really isn't realistic. But it may be a little bit more realistic to set 3 hours aside every single weekend for the next month. And with that time, you're going to go through the different spaces in your house. You're going to declutter. You're going to look at your clothes and get rid of things that are no longer serving you. You're not wearing them. You're going to go through your vitamin cabinet and make sure that everything is up to date in there. Every nook and cranny of the home, I recommend kind of getting those things in order first. And if you want a helpful resource on this, there is a digital guide that I love and that helped me so much in doing this in my own home called Get Your Home in Order by Jacqueline Small. She is incredible, so anointed. If you have social media, highly recommend following her, but you can go to her website. I will link it in the show notes. This is basically a guide to walk you through everything that I'm talking about, from setting the spiritual atmosphere in your home to getting every single area of your home in order and really cultivating a home that does reflect God inside of it. So do that deep clean, go room by room, get organized. And then from there, it's more so maintaining it as opposed to always feeling like you're barely keeping your head above water with the things that you have to clean and the things that you have to organize. I also highly recommend giving the things in your home a home. So what do I mean by that? I mean, when things don't have specific places that they need to go, it is so hard to stay on top of maintaining an orderly home. You may do the biggest deep clean and your home is looking A1, it's looking so nice and so organized. But then if nobody else in your home knows, or maybe you even don't have very quick ways to put things back into their certain places and things don't have a place to live, it's only a matter of time before your home is completely disorganized again. So this could look like, for me, example, in my laundry room, I have a little laundry supplies basket. This has everything from stain remover to my laundry detergent to my wool dryer balls. So everything has a specific space to live. Or for example, inside of my bathroom, I've got this makeup container and all of my makeup goes inside of it. And there are different little drawers for different parts of my makeup. So I'm not having to deal with going into my bathroom and just assuming that because I did this one deep clean and I set every piece of makeup in a certain spot, that I'm actually going to keep up with it. So you can do things like this to make it easier for yourself. Work smarter, not harder when it comes to the home. Make it easy for yourself and for the other people in your house to know where things go. Now, those are some of the things that I do on a day-to-day basis. And of course, this is integrated into the rhythm of what works for my own life. And here are some of the things that I do on a weekly basis. So on a weekly basis, I'm always setting one day where I'm going to clean out my refrigerator. For me, I always do this the day before our trash comes because it's a lot easier to just go through everything and take it directly outside into the trash because I know it's going to be picked up the next day. It doesn't need to sit inside of my trash can. There are just certain things you don't want lingering inside of a trash, like food that's going bad, things that don't have a very pleasant smell. So cleaning out the refrigerator, that is a weekly non-negotiable for me. And I highly recommend doing that in accordance with your trash schedule. So you can just take it right out to the front of your house and throw it in the bin and it's out of sight, out of mind. Cleaning out the fridge, I'm doing that every single week. I'm also vacuuming the rooms in our house every single week. So I'm mopping pretty much every other day. Most of our floors are wood, but the bedrooms are all carpeted. So that's something that once a week I'm going through the bedrooms and I'm going to vacuum every single bedroom. Another thing that I'm doing on a weekly basis is more of a deep clean of all of the bathrooms. So I may tidy them up on a day-to-day basis, wiping the counters down, things like that. But on a weekly basis, I'm really getting in, I'm scrubbing the toilets, I'm giving the bathtubs a wipe, that sort of thing. So that is more of a weekly rhythm for me. I'm also planning our meals and grocery shopping. And this, I'm telling you, this is a game changer because the fact that I have to think about what my family is going to eat every single day for the rest of my life honestly still blows my mind that I have been given that responsibility to like nourish these people and keep them fed and keep them alive, keep myself fed and keep myself alive. It really is wild. But planning my meals and grocery shopping for the week on a weekly basis is so helpful. Now, the way that I do this is I have 2 shared notes inside of my phone, and I share both of those notes with my husband so we can see it, update it together, and just collaborate on it. The first note is meals, and I kind of keep a running list of meals based on the things that we have in rotation all the time. Maybe I find new recipes on Pinterest, and then within that note, the meals are broken down into meals that we have all the ingredients for, and then meals that we would have to get ingredients for. So as I'm planning my meals for the week, I take those meals and I put them into the category of meals that we're going to have all the ingredients for. So that way our meals are already mapped out for the week. And then I go into my other note, which is my grocery list note, and I make sure that I map out all of the ingredients that I need to then go and make all of those meals. So one thing about my husband, and he always tells me this, is he's like, I will help with anything that you need with cooking the meals. It's just really hard for me to think about what we're going to eat. And I'm like, trust me, I know, because same. However, I try to make that a little bit easier by having all of the meals planned out. And on that meals note, I also include any recipes. So if it's a Pinterest recipe, then I'll put it on there. If it's something really simple that either one of us would already know how to make, then I'm not going to put the recipe on if it's something that we make maybe every single week. But if it's a new recipe and I'm trying something out, I'll put the name of the meal and then I'll put a little arrow and I'll put the recipe to the meal. So even if it's a night where maybe I don't have it in me to cook dinner that night and my husband's going to cook dinner, he's already set up for success because all of the ingredients are already in the house. He's got the name of the meal, he's got the recipe for the meal, and all he has to do is follow it and we are good to go. This has honestly massively helped me in pregnancy too, because a lot of times as we get later into the day, especially right now, I'm in my 3rd trimester. Let's just say I'm feeling it. It's really helpful for him to be able to kind of take over dinner time and I have that off my plate. So planning out my meals in advance and then planning out my grocery list and getting all of that done on a weekly basis is super helpful. Maybe one day I will graduate to being the one who actually preps all of the meals at the beginning of the week. But for right now, planning them is enough. It takes the decision fatigue out of my mind and it just allows things to run a lot more smoothly. Okay, couple more things that I like to do every single week are cleaning up the outdoor areas of my home. So I have a dog, so that means once a week I'm going into the backyard. I'm making sure I'm totally picking up after her, just kind of tidying things up, wiping down the patio furniture. Maybe my son had some toys that he kind of left outside in places where they don't go. So I'm organizing those toys and putting things back where they go. And I'm just doing a little outdoor refresh. So if that's something that applies to you, if you have a backyard that you're using or patio space that you're using, just getting things cleaned, wiped down, and refreshing that area. I like to do that every single week. And then the other thing that I like to do, and this isn't so much a home system, but it is a rhythm that's implemented into my life and I feel like it's worth sharing, is my husband and I always do a weekly marriage check-in. Y'all, This has changed my life. We could do a whole podcast episode on marriage and the things that we implement in our marriage that have really changed the game for us. But this is one that we do every single week. We're going to sit down. We're going to talk about highs, lows, how we're feeling in marriage. We're really just going to take that time to connect with one another. We're going to talk about what's coming up in the week ahead, what he's got going on, what I've got going on, his travel schedule, all of the things. And then on a bi-weekly basis, we go over all of the finances, we go over all of the budget stuff, and implementing this practice has been so helpful for us. My husband travels a lot for work. Sometimes it's kind of hard for me to keep up with his travel schedule and when he's going to be home, when he's going to be gone, and how we're going to kind of run things throughout the week. So being able to sit down, not just for the scheduling, but also just to check in with each other and to see how we're feeling and to see how things are going is a massive game changer. So I highly recommend, if you are married, implementing that into your home systems. Even though it doesn't directly relate to the home, I just felt that that had to be mentioned in this episode. So I really break down the business of my home into the things I need to do every single day, the things that I need to do every single week. And then there are things that I do a little bit less frequently, maybe they're every single month. And that could be things like going through my child's clothes and getting rid of everything that he's outgrown, or doing a really deep clean of the home. And we're getting baseboards and we're really getting in showers and we're scrubbing things out, that kind of thing. So it's those things that happen a little bit less frequently, but nonetheless are a big part of keeping everything running smoothly. The final thing I want to make note of here, and I believe that we've talked about this in previous podcast episodes, is the power of cultivating habits and habit stacking specifically when it comes to creating systems in your home. So with anything, it is very hard to just adopt a whole bunch of new rhythms and then keep doing those things very consistently unless you make a habit out of it. Like I was saying before, with my morning routine, those things are so habitual for me that I don't even think about it. I don't even think, am I going to open the blinds today? Or am I going to unload the dishwasher as soon as I wake up in the morning? They've become so ingrained into my life that it's just what I do. I make note of this to say a way that you can cultivate habits within your home is by habit stacking. And what I mean by that is taking habits that you already have in place and then adding new things that you want to implement on top of those things. So instead of just trying to completely change your life overnight, you're going to take a habit that you want to implement and you're going to attach it to a habit that you already have implemented. So an example of this is taking your vitamins in the morning. If you want to make sure that you're not forgetting to take your vitamins in the morning, then maybe what you do as part of your closing routine is you set all of your vitamins out in a little bowl and you put it right by the coffee machine, because maybe you already have a habit of waking up and making your morning cup of coffee. So this way, when you wake up in the morning and you go to your coffee maker and you're getting ready to make that coffee, the vitamins are sitting right there and you can take them immediately in that moment, and then you can reset it again that night. So taking habits that don't exist and attaching them to habits that already do exist is a really good way to start implementing those systems in your home. I'll take this season of my life as an example. I am at a stage right now where my son, he's been waking up a lot at night or getting up really early. He's crawling into bed with us. And so I don't necessarily have that time for that one-on-one quiet time, devotional time that I would love to have. But what I can do is when I'm unloading the dishwasher in the morning or when I'm taking a shower at night, I can put on the daily audio Bible and I can listen to the Word of God as I'm going about the other tasks in my home. So I'm taking that habit that I want of making sure that I'm in the Word every single day, and I'm just attaching it to other things that I already have to do. That way I can keep up with the consistency and I don't lose sight of what matters to me, even if in a certain season it looks a little bit different than it looks in another season. And this can really be done one step at a time. I am a big believer that small changes lead to the biggest results over time. So you do not have to take 10 new systems and 10 new rhythms and implement them tomorrow. You can start step by step. You can start by taking inventory of your home, by scheduling the time to first declutter the things in your home, to really sit down and maybe you just need to journal out what things are important to you, what type of atmosphere you want to cultivate in your home. And once you get clear on what that looks like for you, then you can start implementing new systems and new rhythms one day at a time, one step at a time, and it will change your life from the inside out. I promise you. So we're starting with those spiritual rhythms and the posture of our hearts. We're addressing first things first. And then from that place, we're going into the practical rhythms and the practical systems that are going to work for you in this season with where you're at. And we're revisiting this every so often as seasons change, as you move, as you start a new job, as you get married, as you have a kid, whatever. These things are going to change over time. So we are constantly going to revisit that. But we're starting out with the foundational posture, and then we're moving on into the practical systems. And most importantly, we are building habits that we can stick to over a long period of time. Always keeping in mind that this is not something that we just have to do. This is not about a laundry list of things that we have to do to keep things running. This is about biblical stewardship. This is about cultivating joy and really relishing in the blessings that God has given us and letting our lives speak to the gratitude that we have for what He has blessed us with. Maybe today's episode has already sparked some things for you where you know you want to make some changes, whether it's making that bed every single day or whether it is shifting that mindset from I have to do this to I get to do this. I want to encourage you that these things are possible. They are attainable. I know that life can be overwhelming. I know that there can be so many things that we juggle on our plate. And so sometimes it feels like adding even more is just going to bring stress. But I just want to encourage you that when you're able to create an atmosphere of peace in your home and when you're able to implement systems where everything flows smoothly in your home, it is going to help in all of the other areas of your life. And with that being said, I want to close out with one more verse that I love so much, and it's from Isaiah 32:18, and it says, "My people will live in peaceful dwelling places, in secure homes, in undisturbed places of rest." This is the kind of home that we are called to cultivate, a home of peace, a home of rest, a sanctuary where our families and our friends and strangers, whoever comes in through those doors, can walk in and they can feel the love of God. They can feel the peace of God, and they just feel a sense of comfort when they walk in through your doors. I hope that this episode encouraged you today. If it did, I would love to hear what your biggest takeaways are, whether that's a mindset shift or a new system that you're implementing. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world if you would take a minute, leave us a rating in the podcast store, leave us a review. I love hearing your thoughts. I love hearing what you want to touch on next. So be sure to leave us a review, share this episode with a friend who needs to hear it, and let's continue cultivating a sanctuary mindset in each and every one of our homes. I'll see you next time.